Hello, I'm just going to put my glove on because my fingers are cold, but my name is Sarah. I'm an English teacher and language anxiety coach, and in this video I'm going to talk about habits and how difficult it is for us to change a habit, and particularly I'm going to be talking about pronunciation. So I have a client, a student at the moment, who is from Korea, and the Korean pronunciation system and the English pronunciation system are basically completely different. So it's very hard for me to speak Korean with a good accent because it's hard, and it's very hard for Korean English students to speak English with good pronunciation because it's just so different. Now, my student is probably about my age, so not a young person, or not a very young person, and all of their other English skills are actually very good. So they're very good at reading, they can actually speak very well, they can tell good stories, their listening is good, but they have real problems with pronunciation. Now, the students started learning English at school when they were a kid. So they've been learning English a long time. And recently in a lesson, we were looking at the difference between s and sh. Oh, 1 second, I'm just going to pause this. Sorry about that. I have a tiny little dog you might see behind me sometimes, and there was a man with two great big massive dogs, like almost as big as a small pony. So yeah, that was interesting. Anyway, we were practicing the difference between s and sh. Now, those two sounds are very difficult for Korean speakers. They can't really, so Korean has a kind of sound in the middle, they might have two, but there isn't really a very clear difference in Korean between s and sh. So for Korean speakers, this is very, very confusing, and they'll get confused with words like seat and sheet, or they might say things like shun instead of sun. And so we were talking about this, and we were trying to do some practice. And although it can be a bit difficult teaching pronunciation on Zoom, I noticed that my student's mouth was quite a strange shape. And the student was doing this, almost like and I said, well, you don't need to do that. It's not it's just shh. Look, a completely different mouth shape. And the student said, oh, because when I was at school, our teacher told us that we have to make our mouth really round and put the tongue really back. So the student was trying to say which sounds nothing like sh. Anyway, it's very hard for this student to overcome this habit, because they have the habit of saying not sh. And I think this is a really big problem with pronunciation, particularly for slightly older students. So if you are a little bit older, I'm not going to talk about ages particularly, but if you're a little bit older, you'll know what I mean. You might be thinking, oh, I really struggle with pronunciation, but it becomes a habit. Those bad habits that you learned when you were younger or when you started to learn English have basically become part of how you speak. And to change those habits is challenging, because we're not just talking about habits up here, we're talking about physical habits. Now there's more people with dogs, and my little dog is going to go towards them. She's not always a very friendly dog. So what can you do about this? If you've got a habit which is very much part of your language, I think I will just pause again. Dogs. So what can you do if you've got this problem? If you've got a habit with pronunciation and you know it's not right, but you can't seem to correct it? Well, number one, you need help. Okay, it doesn't have to be me. There's lots of people who teach pronunciation out there, but you need help. If you know your pronunciation is poor, you need someone there to help you understand what you're doing wrong, because of all the language skills, speaking and pronunciation are almost impossible to work on alone. You need help. And the second thing you need is practice. Okay, if you've got a weak pronunciation and you have to unlearn habits, you have to then put in new habits. So my student has to go away and practice sheet, she, whatever, until they can actually say that more like how I say it. Pronunciation, all skills need practice, but pronunciation really benefits from regular practice. 5 minutes a day is fine, but it has to happen every day. And I think with pronunciation, people give up far too quickly. I've had clients who wanted to work on their pronunciation and they just don't give themselves time. You know, think about it. If you've been speaking English with weak pronunciation for 25 years, you are not going to unlearn all that and improve it in 3 months. How is that possible? It's not possible. So if your pronunciation is weak and you want to improve it, great, get a teacher, but you need to practice consistently for maybe a year, maybe 2, maybe 3 years to get your pronunciation to where you need it to be. Okay, so changing these physical habits, changing your understanding of mouth and tongue takes time and practice, but absolutely it's doable. I have absolute confidence that whoever you are watching this, whatever your pronunciation level, you can absolutely work to improve it if that's what you want to do. Any comments, any questions, or any disagreements, please put them below. Always happy to have a chat with you. And thank you so much for watching this video. I am now going home because I'm cold. Bye bye.